There we are. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and children, if you're watching as well. We have with us two guests today, Professor Philip and his wife, Celia Wolf Devine. So Philip Devine and Celia Devine. Celia, why don't you tell us a little bit about Philip?
Okay. Phil went to Yale as a BA from Yale and a PhD from Berkeley, University of California. He's taught at a number of different places. He was a liberal arts fellow at Harvard one semester. He's written a very well-known book on, it's called The Ethics of Homicide. It was one of the first applied ethics books. He talks about abortion and suicide and war and all the life issues. He's also written Relativism, Nihilism, and God. Lots and lots and lots of articles. Very impressive vita. I don't want to go through everything, but anyway, he is my co-editor in this Sex and Gender book, which we are going to show you.
Okay. Well, they'll show it in a minute. When they bring me up, I'll put it. Here we are, Sex and Gender.
A spectrum of views.
A spectrum of views. It's a wide spectrum, too. I guess just about everybody who has something to say about the subject has had a hearing in this book. So if anyone wants to get a wide view of thoughts on the matters of sex and gender, that's the book.
Yeah, Phil will introduce it.
Celia Wolf Devine is retired from Stonehill College. She's the author of Descartes on Seeing and Diversity and Community in the Academy, which is about the affirmative action dispute. Her main work she's done work both in social and political philosophy and in early modern philosophy generally. And she's my co-editor of Sex and Gender and my co-author with an essay in the anthology called Abortion, Three Perspectives, published by Oxford, which is there.
One of the things we wanted to talk about is how you got started in writing the book. What?
Okay, well, I'll pick that up first.
Okay.
I was teaching at Stonehill College, and there was in a gender studies program got started there. And it seemed to me, increasingly, the students I was getting were getting a one-sided view of these kinds of issues. And being a philosopher, philosophers believe in dialogue, right? So we want to teach our students to reason about these issues, not just accept what is the prevailing thing to think, but just, so I was concerned. And so I started a course on sex and gender, and what I did to begin with, I wanted to provide a forum for discussion, rational discussion. And so I started Xeroxing essays and putting them in groups and having them copied, and gradually it kind of grew into a book, and Phil showed great interest in working on it. He's been working on these issues a lot lately. So we put it together. We had we had one publisher interested, fell through, and they sold it to Wadsworth. And then they sat on it for a while, and finally, we got to know the editor a bit and persuaded him that this was a good book. And he said, I want to hear both sides out there. That's only fair. So they did publish it, and then it got sold to Cengage. And I think the editor was very concerned that what you get in a course on gender studies is one-sided.
Yeah.
And philosophers are trying to remedy this by trying to read where the other people are coming from, why they think what they think, what arguments they have, that kind of thing. So we put it together in a sort of widening circle. We start male-female, then we have sex, then we have reproduction, then we have marriage and family, then we have politics, and finally God as father or mother. So it's a kind of structured working through these issues.
Everybody gets a chance have their view expressed. And people who read the book get a chance to hear the wide variety of thoughts on the subject.
Could I add something?
Yes, of course.
We had a lot of trouble getting it published.
Really?
Even after it was formally accepted, there was internal opposition to publishing it at all.
Really?
It took a lot of politicking. There are a lot of people out there who don't want a book which gives you the range of views. The current phrase is state-of-the-art gender studies, which means views that are at all traditional are just dismissed without consideration. This is, in my view, as a philosopher, absolutely dreadful, but that is the view. And a lot of people out there will not want to use a book like this because, there are Catholics as well as people of very different persuasions represented. I would like to drive home that the most important thing in the book for us, certainly for me, is that we do want to give everybody a hearing. Now, there are people who are not represented, inevitably, but that's life. But we try, to my knowledge, this is the widest lensed book out there. Unfortunately, Cengage is in trouble. The publishing industry these days is really in dreadful shape, but I believe the book is still available online. I mean, you could get it from Amazon.
As a textbook, it's available. You can buy it from the publisher, and there's also used copies out there.
Yeah,
So.
you could get it get it on Amazon, for example.
And you have another book. Is that from Oxford University?
Yes, this is the one from Oxford.
Want to display it?
I would like to.
Actually, the editor, who disappeared somewhere in the process, encountered Celia at a convention and asked her if she'd like to contribute to a debate anthology on abortion, which she agreed to and recruited me.
Yeah.
So the essay, well, we both worked on it. It was a very difficult relationship with our co-authors. I mean, it was,
Oh, yes.
Michael Tooley is in outer space somewhere, and Alison Jagger is completely political. And it was difficult working with them. I mean, they were not interested in really dialogue with us at all.
Yeah.
However, we did get it published, and it's published by Oxford, and it's also available. So, again, you get it from the publisher or from Amazon.com.
Some of these may be out there digitally now. A lot of things are. I think that one may be.
Yeah, we tried to find out whether it was available digitally, but we didn't get an answer back.
Yeah.
We're not very technological.
But no, but I mean, publishers are not very good at informing you
Well,
about these
that's also
things.
true.
I mean, we just want.
I think some parts of it were reprinted, but nobody told us. So.
I mean, it's certainly available, and you should, with a computer, you can find all or part of it without much difficulty.
So we each wrote a large introductory essay, and then we wrote second essays responding to the other two people.
Yes, so there are two
And
essays.
they did the same to us.
So
each of us did 2 essays.
we know. Well, each,
Well,
we as a group did 2 essays, and each of the other writers did 2 essays.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. And Oxford University Press is one of the most prestigious publishing houses, I think, that exists
Yes.
in the English-speaking world today, and maybe beyond.
Yeah, at the top, the publishing industry is not politically correct. It will publish a wide range of views. I mean, Oxford publishes Bibles also. But the smaller publishers are very difficult to deal with if you're not in on the current orthodoxy. But Oxford and Cambridge and Cornell, which originally published my homicide book, they will publish a wide variety of views. So.
What is the current orthodoxy in the subject of gender?
Sex doesn't count, only gender. Gender is totally malleable. You can be any of 18, 50, 60. The numbers get larger and larger and larger genders. However, sexual orientation is hardwired.
Yes.
You are born gay or born lesbian, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
But your gender is completely malleable. If that doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to state the view.
And marriage is generally insignificant. It's just a piece of paper, unless it's homosexual marriage.
Well, it's
and then it becomes very important.
Well,
Or
marriage.
it's patriarchal and oppressive.
Yes.
It's either patriarchal and oppressive or anything you want it to be. So at least the consistent ones, the ones who are prepared to bite the bullet, will defend group marriage, or they call it polyamory.
Oh, yes.
For the cutting edge of the Unitarian Church, for example, is Unitarian Universalists for Polyamory Awareness.
Is that right?
Yes. The relationships are not very stable, but they don't care. I mean, polyamorous relationships could break up lots and lots of different ways. They know it, they don't care.
Interesting.
But anything else you want to call marriage, I mean, I just take the most, so long as everybody is of age and consenting, they do hold to that. I mean, they're not defending child marriages, anybody to my knowledge.
Yeah. Although there is a new book out, not focusing on marriage. It's called Hot, H-O-T, Right Now. Hot Right Now by Rita Ora. It's coming out next week, I guess. She's a judge with Simon Cowell on a television program where he is a judge.
Yeah, she plays a judge.
She plays a judge.
Yes, I think I've seen it.
And she had a relationship which she describes as a young teenager, which she defends. And it's a little unusual because she's receiving a lot of opposition for her book, and yet she maintains her defense. So
well,
what was this relationship?
it was a male-female relationship.
Yeah.
The man was 24, I think, or 26, I forget which, but she was 14.
Okay, yeah. Definitely underage.
Yeah.
Well, one of the shocks I've experienced along the way is one of my teachers, who I always thought a very, very conservative person, wrote an article defending adult-child sex and the example he used of an ideal adult-child relationship involved a 9-year-old boy. Yeah. He backed down. I mean, yes, there are people who think that, but I sometimes doubt the logic of the people who do this, but most people will draw the line at that.
One of the newest...
I mean, most people who are of the Orthodox persuasion, in the quote-unquote sense.
One of the newest... I can't think of the noun, but one of the newest controversies relates to Bruce Jenner. It used to be called Bruce Jenner, now he's called Caitlyn Jenner, and this is the cover of People magazine, where he became... I guess he's called a transsexual, but he hasn't undergone gender reassignment surgery, and he's not sure that he wants to.
Yes, that I'm told is not that uncommon.
Yeah.
I mean...
I actually told this story about my students. My first time I taught this at Stonehill, I had 9 students, 8 males and 1 female. As the word kind of got around, that I was not one of the feminist establishment, and so we were going along, we were reading the story of a transsexual, and everybody was trying to be very respectful and everything, and then all of a sudden one of the guys burst in, he said, "Do whatever you want, man, but don't cut it off." Everybody cracked up. It was really funny.
We have actually a good old-fashioned word for those who have undergone gender reassignment surgery, eunuch. That's male to female.
Yes.
Short of that, we have also known that some men are very feminine in all sorts of ways, and beyond that, we just have an exercise of will here. I am a woman,
Yes.
There was a very funny case recently in which a woman with no African background, to anyone's knowledge, decided she was black.
Yes.
And everybody was terribly, terribly upset.
Isn't that remarkable?
I mean, it's a little strange. It did involve, I think, a certain amount of deceit. But anyway, one transsexual said, "I'm not all like this woman. I really am a woman," even though she had not undergone any surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, you can define your sex as you please, or your gender as you please. I'm not sure which they'd say here. But if you defend your race as you please, people get terribly upset. Cardinal Lustiger said he was still a Jew, even though he was converted to Christianity. Mm-hmm. And both Jews and Christians got very upset with him. And he had a reasonable claim to be called a Jew. I mean, he was of Jewish origins.
Yes.
I had a student once who was very light-skinned African-American, And he wrote a rather strange paper for me, which rather surprised me, saying Jim Crow would be all right if I could define myself as white.
Oh.
Now, I don't think Jim Crow would be all right
Yes.
in that. But on the other hand, he was to say, if somebody is only 1/8 African American, why isn't it legitimate for him to prefer his European side? You know, if someone's only 1/8 English, the rest is Irish, defines himself as Irish, and nobody gets upset about that. But people feel you somehow essentialistic. People are essentialistic about race and ethnicity, and completely unessentialistic about gender. And to my humble opinion, that makes no sense whatever.
And some people from India, although they're really dark-skinned, check off white.
Yes, well, they are technically Caucasian in that they don't have the African genes. I mean, what the group we call African American really just means is the descendants of American slaves. And even some descendants of American slaves are not really African Americans in the usual sense. Liberians, for example. There are a lot of Liberian immigrants in America, and they're very different people from African Americans in the usual sense. I mean, this is cultural and ethnic. It's not racial at this point. I mean, they have different, historic cultural memory. And, they were the elite before things got too unpleasant in Liberia, and that makes a difference, the kind of people there. I mean, race, in my view, is really cultural, and obviously very porous. And I did not object to my students' desire to be considered white. I did object to his wanting to defend Jim Crow, so long as he was he could define himself as one of the privileged race. But like if somebody just says I'm a woman and doesn't even undergo surgery, well, obviously he's not. Whatever he is, he's not a woman. I'm sorry to be sort of dogmatic, but that I think is a no-brainer.
Yes.
I mean, I can see someone like Jan Morris who did go undergo surgery, how she might be considered a woman, although I prefer the word eunuch. But Jenner, I don't see.
Well, Morris had a whole story of starting very young, feeling he was a woman, having a mystique of the feminine, the eternal feminine, the pure, the choir boy singing and wanting to be pure and aspiring to, there was his soul was feminine, and there was a sense in which there was something really at stake and something attractive that he was aspiring to. When we have people who I just decide, I want to. He felt there was. That's our first section. No, it isn't.
It's not our first section. It's the first section, the gender section. We have a prologue on emotion and reason.
Oh, right. We have the prologue.
And Jen Morris is featured. One of the people featured in the book.
We start with the story of a transsexual, and we asked the students. We had a hard time getting this past our editors. We wanted to ask: was Morris a woman before surgery? Is Morris a woman after surgery? But we couldn't use any pronouns because in the publishing industry, you must refer to post-operative transsexuals as their new gender. But of course, we wanted to ask whether the students really thought that this individual had changed. And so we had to just keep using, is Morris this, is Morris that, because we couldn't use any pronouns.
It was, yes. A lot of women, I shouldn't speak for women, but a lot of women would say that what Morris wanted to be really wasn't a real woman.
Yes.
That it was his own weird notion of a lady, which really wasn't real ladies either. Yeah. That women are in real life not that ethereal. And they're just, he had this internalized notion of what a woman should be, which had little, in the view of many women, to do with real life.
The liberal media seemed to have championed the idea. Just today, in the New York Post, there was a controversial article involving Germaine Greer, the woman who wrote female eunuch. Yeah. And she's mad, or she seems to be upset. She seems to be mad.
She frequently is.
About Glamour magazine naming Caitlyn Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner, the Woman of the Year. And she takes great exception to that. and it's in the.
On the grounds that, hey, he's not a woman.
Yes.
Oh, I'm that grass.
Well, I once really got beaten up by let's see, female to male woman who was, I don't know if she had had the surgery or not. She certainly was taking testosterone. And I didn't want to use the male pronoun, and it was like, I was afraid she was going to slug me. I mean, it is a coercion of other people's consciences.
Yes.
And people seem to be. I mean, I worry with when the worm finally turns, it could be really awful. I mean, things get really ugly. But people, so many people who out there seem to be being groomed to be citizens of a fascist state. I mean, they're not, just will not stand up for their beliefs. I mean, that is a dangerous trait. My students are extremely get along by going along. And okay, we do have to a certain degree, to keep society going. But when I was their age, everybody was a rebel.
Yes.
And here these kids are just. I have to bring up Nazi examples to try to get through to them that we can't. Up to a point, of course, we have to, but we can't just get along by going along. But an awful lot of people in our society, if you squawk long enough, loud enough, they'll cave. And a lot of people in bureaucracies, administrative positions of various sorts, particularly in colleges and universities, I think are worse than the others. Just will cave to whoever screams the loudest. And of course, soon the word is out. The way to answer such people is to scream louder yourself. And when screaming doesn't work, then you do things like poison pen letters and death threats. And then we can proceed, or you can go from there. And I find it, as a philosopher, I believe in dialogue anyway, but I'm very troubled by the lack of dialogue in this general culture, even if it's not the level of dialogue that I want in my classes.
Alan Bloom wrote a book called The Closing of the American Mind. And Konrad Lorenz, the pioneer psychologist, said that the seeds of Nazism were at that time in the then current hippie movement. Which I don't think he explained that in great detail.
Well, I can see why. I mean, Nazism is strong, but I see why at least fascism might be in the hippie movement. Very emotionalistic.
Explain the difference.
All right, the difference between fascism and Nazism. Fascism is a rational, if perhaps unpleasant, political philosophy. Enforced conformity is necessary to keep society going, so we enforce conformity. Arbitrarily chosen values, if need be. For Mussolini, certainly, they were arbitrarily chosen. Nazism adds to fascism various add-ons, such as the Jews are metaphysically creepy, and even Jewish children are a threat to the world, that sort of thing. To say the hippies were nascent Nazis is going a bit far. But they were, their emotionalism, their, unwillingness to reason about their lives and just going with their feelings, yes, I can see how that, if manipulated in the right way, could go fascist. I mean, they certainly were very conformist.
Yes.
They all dressed like the same and all acted the same and did not criticize each other's, did not criticize the common ideas of the group at all. But I can see, but I'm thinking, I'm more worried about our students, my students who are going into regular careers, they're not dropping out.
I forgot to say at Providence College.
At Providence College, yeah. They're not dropping out, but they don't want to think about their views. They don't want to defend their views. I keep on trying to stimulate them by holding up the bad example of the students of Brown, who will, if confronted with views they don't like, either try to shout the person down or retreat into
safe spaces
where they have Play-Doh and pictures of puppies. I say, this is just this. I don't want you to be like that.
No, it's terrible.
But I don't know how much mileage I get by making those arguments. But I do try.
Well, there's this feeling that we're taking our lives in our hands when we express ourselves.
Yeah. Oh yes, the latest concept is microaggression, which means, I gather, making clear you don't like someone.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I mean, I don't.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what it means. And if you disagree with someone, he can accuse you, or she can accuse you of microaggression.
Yeah. The University of California, with the former head of Homeland Security as the president, she said that it's no longer acceptable to say that America is the land of opportunity.
Oh, well, it should be acceptable to say things like that. I mean, there are views that I guess I really don't want in the college, but like we're talking neo-Nazism here, even a big secular university like Berkeley, and religious schools pose a different problem. But even the big secular schools better not have any neo-Nazis there. But you know, conservatives, liberals, and so on, everybody from friends of Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump. What do we have a university for except to give them a chance to talk to each other, not just shout at each other? I mean, isn't that the point of having a university? So that the various factions can get a chance to explore possible common ground and at least get some sort of mutual understanding.
And yet Ray Kelly gets shouted down, and people go to their safe spaces.
Yeah, but I mean,
and Condoleezza Rice she's disinvited as a speaker.
I know. I mean, we had a controversy about a speaker at Providence College, which worked out rather well. John Corvino, was gay advocate, was invited, and there was a bit of a going back and coming forth and dispute about that. But he ended up with having two sessions, one with him and one with Sheriff Gurkus, who was a friend of Robert George, and each had a respondent from PC, and that's how it should be done. However, there is a sad side to the story that one of the other speakers who have a number of related papers was silenced because she advocated Michelle Cretella, because she advocated therapy to change sexual orientation, an issue I have no particular belief on, but she certainly should have the right to explain why she thinks it's a good idea. But she was silenced. So even though we generally solve the problem at a religious school, which we are, the problem of getting different views on the table and actually maybe learning something, there was this subtext that, you know, we only want tolerance for our friends. I mean, I don't.
She kind of backed down.
Well,
she backed. Facebook campaign.
She backed down under
the
pressure.
Person sponsoring her frightened her.
I mean, I think she was a bit cowardly. She could have come, but in fact, I mean, she was in fact silenced. Yes. And there are, it's very difficult to discuss certain things. A lot of things at Providence College. You can be accused of being a racist. You can be accused.
You may be watching. You may be accused.
You can be accused of microaggression. I mean, we cannot, as a department, really discuss a lot of our common problems because the way of conducting the academic debates these days is to denounce your opponents.
And somewhere around 90% of the professors are liberal.
Yeah. Yes,
and therefore contribute to the Democrat Party.
The liberals are all acting like a bunch of hypocrites, and and it creates a very strange situation.
Well, we've come to this is a runaway discussion. I love it. We're going to join you again next week. Will you be with us again next week?
Were you going to give us 2 half-hour sessions or just
yes,
one?
2.
Today, now?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Are we still on the air?
No, we're wrapping it up.
Well.